Hey, how's it going, everyone? Happy Mandalorian Friday. Welcome back here to the FilmSpeak channel for another review and recap of The Mandalorian Season 2. We're talking about Episode 5 titled The Jedi. There's going to be a lot of Jedi talk here, but as always, I'm your host, Griffin Schiller. And if this is your first time checking out the FilmSpeak channel, consider subscribing to it for more insight, analysis, and interviews behind your favorite pieces of entertainment. We talk about movies, TV, all that good stuff, and we break down The Mandalorian every Friday. So if you're into that, you're definitely in the right place, and we'd love to have you be a part of the conversation that we have here on the FilmSpeak channel. But first of all, before we get started, jump down to the comments section and let me know your thoughts on today's episode. I know I know there's going to be a lot of thoughts floating around here. It was a very eventful episode, directed and written by Dave Filoni. So I want to hear all about it, all your theories, all that good stuff down in the comments section below. But as you know, I do not do these reviews alone. I'm, of course, joined by Elliott from Movie Files. Elliott, how's it going, man?
Hey man, it's going good. Got the Thanksgiving dinner in yesterday, and I guess we got the dessert a day later with this episode, man. So I'm really excited to break it all down with you today, man.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good one. Yeah, well, happy Thanksgiving to all of you watching this, or I guess belated Thanksgiving. Hopefully, you all had the best holiday that you possibly could, despite the circumstances, and hopefully that the Mandalorian was that, like you said, that much needed dessert there. But we are also joined by a third special guest. You may know him as a freelance writer over at The Observer and Digital Spy. He's an incredible writer and an encyclopedic. He has an encyclopedic knowledge of Star Wars and especially Clone Wars and Rebels. And so I really wanted to have him on this episode. I'm talking about Rafael Montemayor. How's it going, buddy? How are you doing?
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm also really excited to talk about this episode.
Yeah, I know. Listen, that's this is the thing. It's like every week it's always a fun time to talk about The Mandalorian, but it's like when you get stuff like this that is so lore enhancing, that's just so exciting, that is so different from anything we've gotten from this show thus far, it adds that extra layer of hype to it, you know?
And I think it lived up to the hype, because a lot of the conversation last week was this episode, for better or worse, could make or break this particular season. And for me, it lived up to that hype. So yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's my first question to you, Rafael. Did you think, because this was a highly anticipated episode, we knew that it was coming in the middle of the season, Dave Filoni was going to be writing and directing it. Going in, we all assumed this was going to be the Ahsoka Tano episode, and sure enough, it was. Did it deliver on everything you were sort of like hoping to get out of it?
Absolutely. For one, I was pretty sure, at least fearful, that the episode was going to have Ahsoka at the very end. Mm-hmm. And the fact that we start right with her, like the first scene, just her being a total badass, and sort of a weird, cool parallel to that Darth Vader scene in Rogue One.
Yeah,
just this like scary lightsaber wielding figure that no one can stand up against. But this time it's Ahsoka, and I feel like that alone set the tone for the rest of the episode. Like, this is more than just a Jedi. This is a sort of mythical figure that the show has been missing in a way, or at least anticipating. Yeah,
that's a great way of putting it. The mythology of it, the legend of the Jedi, of these people, and like obviously she's. I think what this episode really reminded me of, and it was sort of a nice parallel to it, just given the fact that Baby Yoda was involved, but it reminded me of when Luke first went to Dagobah in Empire Strikes Back, and it's like really kind of creepy, it's mysterious, we don't entirely know what's going on, but it feels like dark for whatever reason, because we're meeting this like mythical figure who's supposed to be incredibly powerful and in tune with the Force, and is obviously going to teach Luke the ways. In a similar way here with Ahsoka teaching the child and whatnot. And so a lot of the interactions here reminded me of that, and especially the use of silence, and really just like emphasizing the sights and sounds of the world. There's another thing I want to touch on in regards to that, but just in comparing it to when we first meet Yoda in The Empire Strikes Back, I got a lot of parallels to that. So that was, I thought that was a really nice touch on Filoni's part.
Oh yeah, 100%. And going back to that opening scene, just kind of it reminded me a lot of going back to just kind of dark characters like Batman, right? Where the villains of Batman, they don't know where he is. They're scared of him. And Ahsoka had that same vibe where it was just very, very creepy, very awesome. And just kind of leading up to that scene, I'm thinking to myself, is this the same planet that Kylo Ren was in on Rise of Skywalker? But again, going back to Corvus, I'm like, this is just, again, you would think this, grass and forest and this destruction, decimated town or village was just, it was a great way to open up the episode, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Quickly, what you said, if memory serves, the planet that Kylo was at the beginning of Rise of Skywalker, I think that was Mustafar from Revenge of the Sith, even though there's no visual cue in the actual movie, they just confirm it in a book as well. So it's not the same, but I did get similar vibes. And I do feel like it's interesting that you mentioned Yoda, because I didn't think about it that way, but it makes total sense in that the amount of lore that we have seen with Ahsoka. She's now this larger than life. Even though not that many people inside the Star Wars universe know about her, she's seen enough and she's been involved in so many things that she's sort of this remnant of the old ways, sort of like similar to what Yoda was in Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah. I think that's the thing that sort of like separates it from that, but makes it like a nice sort of callback to that, first interaction. Is you're right. Like, we don't know anything about Yoda, but we just know that he's a really like mythic figure. And I think for a lot of people, this will be their first time seeing Ahsoka Tano. And so it's just like, I feel like this could be your first time seeing her and you would still understand like what kind of character she is, the weight that she holds, just because of how Dave Filoni paints her in the episode. He paints her like that Yoda type figure. And then what's cool about it is for the people who have like followed her ever since that first Clone Wars movie and everything, is like seeing the progression of her to the point where like, now she is like this legend is just, it's so rewarding. And I don't know, it was just like one of those things where it's just like seeing how far the character has come and how the fandom has really done a complete 180 and come to accept her is just, it's remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like more than perhaps any other character, just like the way Ahsoka's story has changed both inside and outside of the Star Wars universe has been a remarkable thing to witness. As you mentioned, you're like how she was perceived, and that was intentional. That was the whole point of the character, was introduce someone who was pretty much like Anakin, and it's not like Anakin was really well received at first either. So it was just like more of the same, and see how both of them, especially Ahsoka, outgrew that role and outgrew even the shows that she was in. To the point that now seeing her in this show is like seeing the original cast in The Force Awakens. She's now become we're seeing Leia again after so many years of seeing Han Solo return, but now it's Ahsoka making that jump. And also, I gotta say, you mentioned the first thing, just the moment we finally see her face, just I gotta give it up to Rosario Dawson and the casting. She looks incredible. The makeup, everything looks perfect.
Oh, it was that was actually going to be where I wanted to go next, was like Rosario Dawson's portrayal. Elliott, let's go to you. I mean, like, what did you make of it?
Well, going back to what you said in regards to someone that, like myself, that isn't, I've never seen Ahsoka. I've seen clips. I'm familiar with the character just on doing research, but I love that Dave Filoni was able to, and you guys would be able to speak to this more than I am, kind of complete that story, right? From the last time you see Ahsoka from the last episode of Clone Wars, and then going, years later to seeing this character. I thought, to me, it seems like it was just from animation to live action was just so well done. And again, the casting, Rosario Dawson is she just embodied the character. I feel like she was playing this character for years. And I know there was a conversation about maybe having the actress that voiced the character do the role, but I think they did a good job in bringing in Rosario Dawson. And again, for someone that was kind of tiptoeing around the idea, I'm going to watch Clone Wars one day or Rebels one day, but now this really enticed me to go back and watch those episodes where I can kind of catch up to everyone with this character, because I thought the character was fantastic.
Yeah, for someone who's just like a massive fan of like Ashley, was it Eccleston or Eccleston? I forget her last. Yeah, I think it's like Eccleston. Yeah, for someone who's just a massive fan of her vocal portrayal of the character, it was going to be really hard for someone else to like step into that role and bring that character to life. But like when Rosario Dawson was cast, I was like, I couldn't think of a better actress to play her. And then seeing her in this episode and like seeing her speak, it felt like the Ahsoka that I've known the entire time that I've like, been watching the shows with her in it. I thought like she nailed her mannerisms, she nailed her vocal tone, her fighting style. Like there was just some like, and especially I think it helps that we saw Ahsoka as an adult in Rebels before this moment, right? Like we had that series. It wasn't just, okay, the last time we saw her was in Clone Wars and now we're seeing her in this. Seeing her in Rebels really helped, I think, form this character for Rosario Dawson because she is different from what she is in Clone Wars because of, the amount of time that she's been away and she's been in hiding and all that stuff like that. And I think what Rosario Dawson did was she took that interpretation and she really tapped into her ability as an actress and just brought it to life so seamlessly. And again, to what you were talking about with the makeup and the look of the character, I mean, I was a little concerned. I was like, is she going to translate well into live action? Oh my God, they fucking nailed it. I don't know if I've like ever seen like such a remarkably effective transition from like a cartoon or like an animation to live action. Like it just I felt like I had been seeing her in this way for years, and
especially it being Disney who has done all of these live action remakes, and I feel like after this sets the standard for what they should be doing. This is the standard for how you translate something that's unique to the animation medium and having it be replicated in a way that's different enough to make it work in live action, but still capturing the essence of why people fell in love with the character before. Also, I love that you said that this makes you want to go back, because I feel like that's what something that this show is doing really well, in that it can be argued that the amount of like fan service or like referencing all of that can be a bit overwhelming, but I feel like is doing the same way that the original trilogy did, without there being an expanded universe.
Right.
As in the original trilogy just threw all of these references at you for things that didn't exist. You just hear they're doing the same for things that it would be natural for them to talk about things that they know about. Like references to wars or events, and it's just that we have the ability to go back and see that afterwards. So like for the titular Mandalorian, he doesn't need to know more about who Ahsoka is,
right?
But we can go and say, oh yeah, I want to know more about that. And there's a whole
there's like there's books, there's shows, there's so much lore that you could go back into, and that's a great point. I feel like it was so smart to have her live action introduction be through the lens of Din, because like he's the audience for lack of a better phrase. I mean, like he doesn't have a whole lot of development to him, and we kind of get bits and pieces throughout the series, but ultimately he is like a vessel for the audience to just sort of experience Star Wars through. And so him, who doesn't really know much about her, who doesn't really know much about the Jedi or the Force, he just knows that it's like special abilities and stuff like that. For him to be able to like see Ahsoka and understand who she is and understand the what he has to do with the child and everything, that was a really smart move for this reintroduction,
And it even speaks, going back to just the character development of Mando, it just speaks to when we first met him last season, to this bounty hunter that just does his job, gets paid for his job, doesn't ask any questions, to now second season, his mission was to drop off the child to the Jedi. He gets a new mission from, we'll talk about, Morgan's character, to kill the Jedi. But now seeing this kind of progression of that character of just, it's more than just the mission. His ways are changing as a Mandalorian. So I just kind of love that kind of going back to character development, where we first meet Mando to where he's at in this season. So I kind of love that kind of transition of the character.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, so let's get into some of the more episode specifics. So yeah, that opening with Ahsoka was great. Brilliant way to open up the episode. I was like you guys, I was really curious. I was like, okay, is this how they're gonna go, or are they gonna like save her till the end or whatever? I think my only complaint is that I wish they would have held off on showing her until the very end. And that's just that's like a very, very nitpicky type of thing. But I feel like they revealed their hand too early. Like we all knew it was Ahsoka, but then like we saw like little like glimpses of her face and stuff like that. And I was like, I really wish you would have held off on that until the final moment where she like removes her hood or something like that. And it just
she like turning her lightsaber on and off like several times. Yeah, it feel like a little bit weird.
Yeah,
instead of just showing the result of it. But yeah, I get that.
Yeah, I mean, like it was still excellently done, but like again, and this is, listen, you're gonna hear me praise this episode to the high heavens, but there is still one piece of this whole thing that isn't quite connecting for me, and it's how Dave Filoni shoots live action. He does not have that cinematic flair to him, and so a lot of the action that was going on in here, while it looked really good, and I think the people he surrounded himself with did an amazing job of making it look the best he could. I just feel like his shot selection, the way that he cuts, like it just all feels very, like someone who's still learning the ropes of how to operate or how to direct in a live action format. I think this is by far the best episode he's directed, and I think there is a lot of style to it that I want to get to a little bit later on, but like it doesn't. I feel like if we had gotten someone who, like if Jon Favreau had directed this episode and Filoni was maybe like co-directing it and then also writing it, you would have gotten that rich mythology building, amazing character moments, but you would have had the advantage of someone who just gets the visual medium in live action at the helm. And so I don't know if you guys feel that way. I know I'm definitely going to be in the minority on this, but it still didn't click for me.
Yeah, I definitely, I agree with you. Even in Clone Wars, because I mean, a lot of Clone Wars, he's talking interviews for years, how one thing that he had to learn through Clone Wars was how to shoot animation cinematically. Like George Lucas was really insistent that they shot it like a live action movie. And still, they Filoni didn't direct every episode, especially like I feel like the best one, like especially like the last season of Clone Wars, I think he didn't direct all. He may have directed one or two, but I'm pretty sure he didn't direct like the biggest ones. He certainly like written a lot of it, but as a director, I don't think like he's shown he's up to that level yet. Maybe.
Yeah.
And I get why they will give him this episode. He's like Ahsoka is his baby.
Of course.
Like he was one of the. He said like she was one of the first characters he drew when he was working on Clone Wars. So like I get why he would like get that episode, but still like I hope they find someone who like can do the visuals whenever there's like a big action set piece and have him write it. Like sure,
yeah,
but let somebody else direct that one.
I mean, that's the thing. He should be writing every single one of these episodes. Like that shouldn't even be up for debate. It should just be him doing that. And then, yeah, I mean, maybe doing some second unit directing, but yeah, I don't know, Elliott. How do you sort of feel about his direction?
I actually really thought from the season 1 premiere episode Gunslinger into this, like you had mentioned, Griff, I think this was his most ambitious direction that he's gotten so far, and I actually really enjoyed his direction in this episode because I think he grabbed the essence of what Star Wars was, kind of the foundation of Star Wars, this Western type of vibe, and also the samurai story that we get within this episode, and just the aesthetic of it. I think you mentioned certain shot elections, and we'll get into it a little bit later, but I thought there was just some beautiful cinematography throughout the episode and the way he framed the shots. Like I think of the shot with Ahsoka and the child with the moon in the background, Ahsoka walking up to Morgan, very Western style. So I thought there was definitely, to me, it had a very cinematic approach to it, but there are some shortcomings. And again, his third live action of anything, there's still things to work out. But I thought, again, from episode 1 of 5 of last season to this, his direction sensibilities are kind of on par with the writing for me. But like I said, I can see some of the flaws, but I thought it was kind of a really great job from his direction.
Yeah, and to your point, I think that there are certain stills that are really well composed, which you can do in animation too. And I think that's the key here, is that like if you take a snapshot of certain of just like certain stills throughout this episode, it looks gorgeous. It looks great. I think my issue is like in execution, when pieced together, it isn't as, cinematic. Like it did feel like a really high budget television episode. It didn't feel like I was watching a movie, which is what's, something that Carl Weathers' episode felt like, a movie. Basically, Bryce Dallas Howard's episode really had that cinematic edge to it. Jon Favreau's, obviously. This one, it didn't quite have that edge to it. But to your point, I thought what he did that was absolutely brilliant was he blended these two subgenres of filmmaking that come from the same background. It was like a Kurosawa samurai story, basically, with Ahsoka, and then the lone gunslinger Western. And then when we get to the climax and the two, Mando's battling his guy, Ahsoka's battling Morgan and all that stuff, like he tapped into how those respective films like carry out those climactic beats, like the shots of Din, like putting his hand on the holster, the shots of Ahsoka like slowly maneuvering herself to like battle Morgan. It was just like that stuff was really well composed and framed and everything like that. And I loved that added touch because I thought that it helped create this mood and atmosphere, which this episode was all about mood, which is just something that I don't think I've seen from Star Wars in a very, very long time. But I don't know, Raphael, what you thought about that?
I definitely like, as you said, that the way they, more than I feel most, if not any other episode, that they do a really good blend of the two biggest influences on Star Wars itself, the Western and the samurai movie. And I feel like in the episode, just the third act, you see them two mix together really well. You get from Ahsoka and sort of this Kurosawa style movie to Mandalorian, and just in a Mexican standoff, basically. I feel like that was done really well, and it goes back to how for his, it's not that Filoni is a bad director. He's not. It's just like he maybe should have gone a bit more practice before embarking on such a big project.
100%, yeah.
But you're like, it's hard to think of like where he would have done that.
Exactly. Yeah.
But this episode does capture, because like the thing about him is just like he's such a fan of everything Star Wars, the good and the bad. I feel like this episode captures the tone of what he sees Star Wars as, and just this combination of all of these pulpy sort of stories in a way that like super fun and like it's such a like mythical vibe to it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Something else that a lot of this episode reminded me of, especially when like Din first arrived to on Corvus, was it reminded me of the oh God, why am I blanking on his name? Tarkovsky, whatever I forget what his last name is, but like his like 2D Clone Wars episodes.
Genndy Tartakovsky. Yeah.
It reminded me of that because again, it was the music cut out. It was all about the sounds. It was about the landscape, the atmosphere, him walking through. It was just like, it was a very elemental episode, which is something that 2D Clone Wars series really taps into, and then also it pairs nicely with the Western, the samurai film, because those are all elements that those stories have in common.
100%. And going back to Filoni, this is kind of his playground too. I think it's safe to say that one of these days we will see Dave Filoni get his own baby to kind of play with in the live action realm, whether it be Ahsoka's spinoff show or whatnot. But I think this is, again, 3 episodes under his belt. I would imagine the next time we see him behind the lens, we might be completely blown away by his direction. Some may, he has obviously the George Lucas mindset of creating great stories. And, the notch on George Lucas is he might not be the best director, but I think Dave Filoni, with this kind of format of Jon Favreau and having all these great creatives, I guarantee next time we see him behind the camera, he's going to blow the socks off of us. And Griffin's going to be like, give this man the director of the year, best director in the Mando universe. But I think, like I said, there's still things to grow, but I was really fond of his direction in this. And I'm excited to see what he does next in regards to The Mandalorian or a spinoff.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of the spinoff, that I want to get into this because I think that for as much as I love this episode and for as much as I'm really getting into season 2, this season thus far has felt like almost like a coming attractions preview. It's like, here's all the backdoor pilots we're going to have for the future spin-off shows for The Mandalorian. And so it's like, I'm kind of struggling with, which of these are going to tie into this series, or if this is all just basically like just testing the waters to see which spin-off series is going to generate the most hype. Which this episode definitely felt like a backdoor pilot to like an Ahsoka Tano episode, because as we'll get into a little bit later on with Thrawn, I don't know if Thrawn's going to be the villain in The Mandalorian. They might just be setting him up for the Ahsoka Tano spin-off series,
Yeah, I feel like it's a bit of a difficult question because the change in tone from season 1 to season 2 has been so big.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're actually, because I don't think Lucasfilm will test like pilots like and see like how people react to each episode.
Yeah.
At the same time, we have seen how clear it was that fan reaction did drive at least some part of the live action movie. So it's not that they are above that. But in terms of like, I don't know if they went into this season being like, oh, we're gonna throw a bunch of things at the audience and see what of them sticks.
Yeah.
But it may be that, like season one was a bunch of like scattered stories and they sort of came together at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I know like like Giancarlo Esposito, I think already talked about like we're getting answers in seasons 3 or even 4.
Yeah.
So it could be that they're just like planting seeds for like 2 seasons from now.
Okay.
I definitely think they are thinking of at least 1 or 2 spin-offs.
Mm-hmm.
If only like testing the ground, like if people respond, if Filoni wants to get involved or whoever wants to get involved, something like that. I don't know if I want to see that, but also I don't know if this show can sustain all of that and still make sense as The Mandalorian.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is it's like it's becoming, if they are going to put all this into one show, that show being The Mandalorian, it is sort of losing at its core like what it's supposed to be about, and it is about Din as a whole, which I think the Bo-Katan stuff definitely ties into him nicely, and I hope that they keep that for The Mandalorian, because there's a lot of great stuff to explore there. And I think obviously Katie Sackhoff said that this isn't the last we've seen of her this season, but like the Ahsoka stuff definitely feels like they're kind of setting up like her own show, because I mean she's worthy of getting her own show. Let's put it that way. But it does sort of feel like, oh, we have a live action Star Wars TV show. Let's see how much stuff we can throw in there that sort of like kind of makes sense. I think it's worked for the most part, but I am curious to see like what sort of spins out of this and what avenues.
But then I have a question for you guys, because like since we agree that like at least I agree that the Bo-Katan stuff works in The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
It maybe not like as a focus for the season, but at least like a comic book crossover thing. Like he just involved in like a tiny aspect, and maybe we don't see the rest of it play out, but we know it's going on.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily have to make Ahsoka a live action spin-off. I mean, if they do it right, and like the way so far it seems like they're just grabbing things from the expanded universe and say like, okay, what's a cool thing that can work for this show in this particular moment? I wouldn't be mad if they just say like, okay, no, I mean, Filoni definitely seems to be wanting to continue the Rebel storyline.
Yeah,
let him do it in animation form down the line, and now you have an audience from the live action show that may want to continue it, and it could be cheaper to produce in animation form, and you have him involved or whatever, and you just like a little bit of both. I don't know if that's. I don't think they will do that and just like go from one medium to the other so fast. Yeah. But I feel like I don't know if we can rule out the possibility that like it is not necessarily. I don't think we're gonna get like 5 different Mandalorian type spin-offs.
Right.
I don't know about that.
Well, yeah, that's one. It's like super expensive.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's a fair point. I don't know. know. I could see them. I mean, they are. Aren't they working on another animated show or something like that right now?
Yeah, they right now they confirmed
the Bad Patch, right?
Yeah, there's the Bad Batch, right?
A Clone Wars one, and I know. I don't know if it was recent that they talk about like another like Rebel style, like Empire, like Civil War era show. But I mean, I'm sure they have at least considered it at one point.
Yeah, for sure. I wouldn't be mad if The Mandalorian kind of served as like the sequel series to Rebels, just because of like where it takes place. I think Rebels itself focuses it focuses on a lot of stuff, like they're on that character and the spark of the rebellion, but like there's a lot of time and effort put into expanding Mandalore and stuff like that, and specifically with Sabine. And I feel like this show could definitely tackle that stuff while still being its own thing, but like providing more answers and continuing the story where Rebels left off. And so like kind of similar to Rebels, I think that they could use Ahsoka Tano in like they could use her sparingly, but like still have her impact be felt. And I would be cool with that, because I think that's just like a really interesting thing to explore, especially if they're going to bring in Thrawn. I want to see him in live action. Like I don't want to see him in animation again.
Oh no, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't know, Elliot. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you don't hire someone like a Rosario Dawson just to have popping up in the Mandalorian. I think you do hire someone like that to, again, maybe spin off into something else. So I think, and they've said it numerous of times, especially with COVID, TV is their main priority in Star Wars. I love me some Star Wars movies, but it seems like TV is where they're going to be headed in the next 3 to 5 years. So, I think that's going to be their main focus. And I wouldn't be surprised come next Star Wars Celebration, Ahsoka Tano's spinoff series will be announced with the casting of Thrawn of that nature. So I definitely see the TV world and the spinoffs being their main focal point moving forward in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. Well, we're sort of dancing around the subject. Let's talk about Thrawn. That name drop at the end, which I know to your average person isn't going to really mean much. To someone who's just watching The Mandalorian from Baby Yoda, they're not going to give a shit. But for the rest of us who are like hardcore fans, that name drop, I mean, I was like, holy shit, they're doing it. They're bringing him back. Let's see it. So I don't know, Raphael, let's start with you, because I know that you wrote an entire like piece on this, I believe, didn't you, over at Digital Spies?
Yeah, we posted today an explainer piece about who Thrawn is over at Digital Spy.
Yeah.
And he's basically, by this point, he's just the little villain that cool, He's been on for 30 plus years now, starting like back when the expanded universe was just a very, very small and niche part of the Star Wars franchise. And I came into that late, obviously, because I wasn't even born at the time, but he's from the Heir of the Empire books by Timothy Zahn, and he's basically just especially at the time, he's such a different villain that we had seen in Star Wars, because compared to like what's cool about it is compared to like Vader or Palpatine or even Tarkin, he's not like a scary type, but he's just like cool and polite and just like more like a James Bond villain, I suppose. He came in at the time where, like, because there were no Star Wars movies coming out or nothing like that, it was mostly the book starring like where he appeared that sort of reminded, like, brought people back into the franchise after Return of the Jedi. It wasn't until like, and I'm pretty sure he's like one of the very few, or at least one of the earliest things from the expanded universe to get brought into canon after Disney, but Lucasfilm, when he was introduced in Rebels, and he didn't have like a super huge part in that show, but still he was like a big enough presence that this was a big enough guy to bring back. Like he wasn't just gonna disappear. But seeing him go from like a niche book to TV, like an animated show, and now potentially a live action role, is I'm still in shock.
Oh, I know. It's one of those things that it's just like he's Yeah, you're right. It's like he was always like the one thing from that the Heir of the Empire stuff that was just like, if you're gonna bring anything from this back, bring this guy back. Like he has just such an innate cinematic quality to him. He looks cool and distinct. He just like like you were talking about as a villain, he's less maniacal and cackling and just he's honestly more of like a modern day villain that we would see today. Someone who's like really cool, calculating, and like ruthless, but like really quiet while they're doing it and polite, which is almost scarier than just seeing like, the Empire just like, the Empire, the Emperor doing like for like the millionth time. That to me, and I think him, because obviously we have to assume that, Moff Gideon is sort of tied into stuff that's going on with him too. Those two together are like, they're on the same page. Like they have that same sort of presence to them, that like that darkness that you're like, you're kind of charming, but I don't want to get near you because you scare me. And so it's just like, I can't wait to see, hopefully those interactions. And then also, again, just like seeing this character who's made it through just like years and years of being in like text format to a live action format. It's so cool. But Elliott, going over to you, I know you probably don't know much about Thrawn, but I'm kind of curious as to what your reaction was to just like hearing the name drop in the episode.
Well, I mean, you guys' excitement got me excited for this character. I feel like how people probably felt when they showed Thanos at the end of Avengers in 2012. Like, who the hell is this purple guy? That's kind of how I feel about Thrawn. I've done some research as I've seen the episode. I've heard of the characters. Again, even if I didn't watch the animated series, I'm so like connected to the Star Wars universe that I hear of characters and kind of do some research. So it sounds like a character that kind of fits within this kind of storytelling that they're giving us. And, I've seen some of the casting news. Even some people in the chat mentioned Cumberbatch or Michael Fassbender. So, I mean, that just kind of tells you the caliber of character that it is that you get those type of actors to play the role. Just sounds really intriguing. And it just sounds, from what I also gathered, that there might be ties to this Ezra character, which kind of makes sense in regards to who was the Jedi or the person that took the child out of the temple. So it just seems like everything that they're doing, what I love what Star Wars is doing, what they didn't do at the beginning. And as much as Kathleen Kennedy gets the butt end of like all the terrible stuff that's going on with Star Wars, I love that they're now embracing the outside of the stuff that we've seen before, whether it be the books, the comics, the animated show. So it sounds like Kathleen Kennedy, Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, they're all kind of tapping into the things that I think they were scared at doing, like we had talked about at the beginning, too inside baseball, that it might be too deep into the lore, that it might stand people off. They might get afraid to investigate more into it. But I think it's actually doing the opposite, where someone like me wants to dive deeper into the Thrawns, into Ahsoka, into all these characters. So I think Star Wars is finally embracing the source material that has been there for 30 plus years. So it just gets me excited to see what they're going to do next.
And they're embracing the prequels, and that's all I gotta say. Listen, as a staunch fan and defender of the prequels, it's great to see that like people coming back around on them and embracing the lore and the mythology of it all. It's just
Metachlorians. We got that last week,
dude. It's great. Like, yes, bring it back. Let's do this. But actually, speaking of the prequels, let's talk about Grogu and everything we learned with him. The child's real name.
I love that every time he said his name, he's like, "Oh, finally! I've been trying to say this for the last year." It's finally said my name.
Yeah, it was really cute to see the parental relationship between the child, Baby Yoda, Grogu, whatever you want to call him. He has 3 names now. Between him and Din, sort of furthered, and that attachment that's growing between them, I think is going to make for an interesting. A possible obstacle, possibly not. I don't know. Later down the road, because obviously Ahsoka's like, listen, there's a lot of fear in him because he's got this attachment to you, and I don't know if I can train him as a Jedi because I've seen what that can do. And that's telling us a lot about Ahsoka, because she has such a jaded and cynical outlook, because that attachment is what led to Anakin's downfall. But as we see, sort of in future Star Wars stuff, it's that attachment that kind of actually makes them, just and rightful and stuff like that. And so it's interesting exploring, the old ways of thinking versus the new modern ways of thinking. And I'm curious as to how that's sort of going to, how they're going to continue to explore that later down the road, and especially with going to this temple on what is it, Typhon? Tython. Yeah. Going there, what's going to happen there? What mentor are they going to see? Is this going to be a way for Ewan McGregor to pop in as Obi-Wan? I mean, a lot of stuff to speculate about. Raphael, let's go to you first. What did you make of the whole Grogu stuff, and then what do you think is going to happen with the Jedi Temple?
Right. First, it's such a weird name. I don't know. I still don't know what to. I think it just makes me think of Dragon Ball Z for some reason.
Oh yeah, Goku.
Oh my god, it really does.
It does.
Yeah.
Especially because I don't know. It doesn't. They didn't stick with the Y sounding name like Yoda and Yaddle. What happened to Yaddle?
Yaddle.
I only know one person from that species. Justice for Yaddle, yo.
Honestly.
Right. It was interesting that she mentioned Baby Yoda, I'm still gonna call him that, was raised at the Jedi Temple in Coruscant, and he was there up until the Purge. Because that means Anakin tried to murder the child. I don't know if and in my eye that makes it even worse now.
Yeah.
But at least we know somebody survived, so he didn't kill all of them. In terms of the attachment there, I do wonder if Ahsoka knows how Palpatine died, how widespread it is that it was Darth Vader who killed him. Because if she doesn't know, then as far as she knows, then that attachment was what brought about the downfall of Anakin Skywalker. And she doesn't know that it also brought him back to the light side. She doesn't know that his son's love for him was what brought him back. So she may not know that attachment between Dean and the child may be more good than bad. But based just on the episode, I do want the way she speaks of that, all of the darkness that he's witnessed the past 20 plus years.
Yeah.
It brings more context to season 1 where he foreshokes Cara Dune in one of the episodes.
Yeah, right. There is dude, baby Yoda's a little bastard. He's got a darkness in him.
Joke around at that time that baby Yoda can turn to the dark side, and then the whole eating the eggs and baby Yoda's coming to the right now. It may be cute and jokesy now, but I wouldn't be surprised if eventually we're gonna get a moment where Moff Gideon kidnaps Yoda or tries to hurt Dean or something. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see him do some Force lightning at one point.
Crazy,
or something
man.
like that. If only for a moment, see that conflict within him.
Yeah.
Who knows? It is certainly exciting. And as for the Jedi Temple, I do wonder why they chose that planet instead of Act 2 from The Last Jedi. Because I know there's always been a back and forth between the different parts of the canon of what exactly was the first Jedi Temple.
Yeah.
I thought in the comics and some of the video games was considered to be the first place, and now the Last Jedi said no, it's another planet.
Yeah.
So I don't know what if they're gonna even mention that. As for who's gonna show, I don't think it's Obi-Wan. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be either Ezra or what's his name from the Fallen Order video game.
Oh, right. Yeah. What is that?
Cal something. Yeah. I mean, he will be the easiest one to translate it because it's just the actor.
Yeah.
The motion capture on, and it will be another cool connection to an even to yet another medium in Star Wars. Ezra seems like an obvious choice, if only because you have Thrawn and Ahsoka's goal at the end of Rebel was to look for Ezra. But I don't know, anyone that shows. I mean, really, anyone that shows up is still going to be exciting.
Yeah. I agree. I think I think it mostly. I was just throwing Obi-Wan out there for the hell of it, but I agree with you. I think it is most likely going to be Ezra, in which case we have another live action sort of translation to look forward to. And like you were saying, going off of the end of Rebels, those are the three pieces of that. Well, and Sabine too, who I'm assuming they might incorporate into this.
She probably is.
Yeah, with the Mandalorian stuff, she has to eventually show up in here. But I assume that yeah, that those key players are still out there. Their journeys haven't finished yet, and I feel like there's a way to sort of link them in here with what Din is trying to do and with the child and all of that, and have it feel natural. So like, I don't know, to me, yeah, that would make sense that it would be Ezra that he would sort of find there. I know some people are sort of like curious about, like, does this mean we have a chance to see Luke? Are they just going to ignore Luke?
That was my first thought.
Yeah, right. Like what's going to sort of go on there? Because I mean, is he in hiding right now? Is he training Jedi at this moment? Like I feel like it would be really weird if they didn't acknowledge Luke Skywalker, savior of the galaxy, right? Because like we have to get it. Like in The Last Jedi, he has this. The big thing is like he is now a legend, right? And we haven't heard him mentioned, once in all of this. I mean, I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts or theories as to like how Luke could be incorporated into this, or if he would be?
I mean, just based on obviously we talked about fan reception and how, Star Wars seems to be a little bit more reactionary to the audience response from Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker. I don't know if they want to put a character like that in the TV world quite yet. I know there's someone in the chat, Karen, who's bringing in Sebastian Stan as a younger Luke Skywalker, which I know has been brought up a million times, but I don't know if Luke Skywalker will ever appear, besides maybe the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, but I don't think we'll ever get a hints of Luke Skywalker. But I mean, hell, that would be a news-breaking type of event if we do get something like that. But going back to the child's name, I don't think I'll ever be saying Grogu on a regular basis. Just reminds me so much of like Jon Snow finding out Aegon Targaryen. No one ever called him that. They just called him Jon Snow. So I think that would be the same thing with the child. But yeah, it'll be
Daenerys and Khaleesi.
It's just like it doesn't roll off.
No, it's just Khaleesi.
Yeah. But no, I know some other people were mentioning Mace Windu as someone else. Because I know Sam Jackson has been very vocal of getting back into the Star Wars universe and get our first MF of the Star Wars, the Mandalorian lingo there. But no, there's so many possibilities. And again, this goes back to just Star Wars finally opened themselves up to the possibilities of all the great stuff that they've been building all of these years. So again, Luke Skywalker, Mace Windu, Ezra, the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, my only concern with the possibility of the Skywalkers coming back in is that one of the things I loved about Rebels and what I've loved about The Mandalorian thus far is that we don't need the Skywalkers for it to be Star Wars. It's one of the things I love about Rogue One, is that like you can have a great story without the Skywalkers being in it. And so I wonder, if like a Luke were to make an appearance, if it would sort of like undercut a lot of the stuff that they did. I feel like if they do use Luke in any capacity, it has to be very minimal, maybe like a single episode for like a scene or something. I don't want to see Leia, I don't want to see Han. The only person who I could see fitting in here would be Luke, and it would just have to be very small.
Yeah, and even then, like, we don't know what he's doing at this point, really, because the only thing we know is that he, at some point, had an academy by the time Ben Solo was a kid. That's still years down the line.
Right.
But at most, I wouldn't, like, it wouldn't make sense for him to be involved, but I don't think he will show up directly. I mean, we don't know exactly what this sort of, like, radio, like, force signal is going to be at the temple.
Right.
But it will, like, it will make sense for someone representing Luke's sort of like academy or whatever to show up and maybe name dropping him. But I don't think he personally is going to show up.
Yeah.
Because as of now, we still don't know why this child is special in any way.
Yeah.
It's just like for the audience, we know that he's the only one of his species to still be alive.
Yeah.
We don't know like Luke knows about or anything like that. So like as of now, he's just a force sensitive child, and you wouldn't like send the leader of the, like, you wouldn't send the Pope to go see a child who wants to become a priest or whatever. So like you will send another random like Jedi teacher or whatever to talk about it. So other than that, like, I think like Ezra is the clearer choice, if only to continue that Rebels
sure
thought process. Also, in terms of like how to bring them all together, I feel like Mandalore's gonna be the end point for the show. Like,
Yeah.
Because it connects so many things. Like I was doing research for my article on Digital Spy that Thrawn was briefly involved in a Rebels episode where they take back Mandalore from the Empire, like momentarily. And Sabine, he was involved because Sabine had developed some kind of weapon that targeted Beskar armor.
Yeah.
And he wanted to get his hands on that. So, like, I mean, if only briefly, and if only we see like Dean getting moving like a little bit of it, and not necessarily the whole thing, because as of now, I don't see a reason for him to be like leading an army or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah.
But it will still be the easiest way, I think. Maybe not necessarily the best, but at least there is a way to get all of these threads together in some capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that's
Elliott.
something that's actually we talked about last week or a couple weeks ago about Mando being a leader in some form. Is that something that we can see in the future? Not necessarily leading an army per se, like you just said, but just seeing all the different things of stripping away the character and him becoming this hero every single week, caring for people, letting the people of the village go.
Right,
I definitely think there is something that we're seeing this character kind of becoming this leader versus this lone wolf that we first met him with. So it is something to kind of keep an eye out for the future, the progression of this lone wolf becoming this leader. So I think that is something to look forward to.
Here's an interesting thought. So the show is called The Mandalorian. That could, be tailored to any of these characters who have roots in Mandalore that we're talking about. Bo-Katan, Sabine, obviously Din here. What are the odds that, maybe something happens and Din gets killed in like this season or something like that, and then you have another character sort of like kind of come into place? Like you have Bo-Katan take or like maybe next maybe next season they choose to focus on another Mandalorian that we've known, and so I don't know. I feel like with the name The Mandalorian, you really do have a lot of possibilities to sort of like switch who you choose to follow.
I don't know if I want to see that, but they could.
Yeah.
There's a possibility. I mean, there's many different ways of how Mandalores handle their business. So, I mean, to have a spinoff, not spinoff of sorts, but having a first half of a season focus on one Mandalorian and passing the baton to the next, that would be very risky. But at this point, Star Wars and TV, they're open for anything, man. So that would be wild.
Let me ask you guys this question before we start to wrap things up. Who do you think escorted Grogu off of Coruscant? Do we think it was Yoda, or do we think that it was just some unknown person?
I don't think it's gonna be Yoda, if only because it doesn't really fit into the timeline of the movies, and as much as Filoni has tinkered with the prequels. In the animation, he hasn't outright added anything that doesn't fit, or he hasn't like contradicted anything. And like Yoda was off doing stuff for most of that movie, up until like after the attack. So, and the wording of like the way Ahsoka says it, it feels like somebody saw it coming and did something before. And none of the characters we know who like survived Revenge of the Sith were there at the time. So I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. Elliott, any thoughts? Any theories?
The Yoda thing definitely interests me because again, the last of his kind and protecting this species kind of makes sense. But as far as like you were just saying, the timeline wise, maybe doesn't match up per se. But again, there's always room to retcon things and kind of adjust things in the Star Wars universe. But it'll be really interesting to see if we ever find that out, who was the person that escorted him, and if it's the same person that we're going to meet at this temple and seeing, again, going back to this whole Mandalorian conversation of who can take up the mantle if they do that. I mean, is it possible the child can be a Mandalorian of his own and not go away Jedi?
That was a theory back in season 1 where he's now a foundling. So like, I mean, maybe someone in the comments said that Yaddle could be the one that
I saw Yaddle.
Yaddle. I mean, yes. Bring her back. Maybe
Justice
she's the one that
Yaddle.
shows up in the temple. I don't know. Justice for Yaddle, exactly.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, again, that's what I love about this episode is it just gives. This is the first time where I feel like I've had so much that I want to talk about with the Mandalorian. So many different avenues we can go in. So much to speculate about, and whatnot. I guess as we start winding down here, what do we think is going to happen in the next episode and for the rest of the season? Obviously, we know that they have to go to the temple, but like, how do we think that things are going to come to a head here?
Well, that's the $1 million question, right? I think, and also to quick shout out to, I do want to applaud the music of this episode, which I thought was fantastic. All the music was used.
Yes.
She brought up Yoda and the original John Williams score. Legwood is just, I mean, give him, I don't want to say next John Williams, but whenever there's a Star Wars project, I want Legwood to be involved.
Yeah, man.
In some capacity.
Seriously.
So the music was great. And also Michael Biehn for my, sci-fi fans of Terminator and Aliens. I love that the Mandalorian is kind of bringing in all these 80 stars. It really touched my heart. But as far as moving forward, man, I think, we got to remember Moff Gideon, he still has his beacon. He still has that tracker on, the Crest Razor. So I was always thinking too that he was going to go to Corvus and take, Ahsoka, but I think he's still going to be following, Mando. And I think that's going to lead to them going to the temple and him again, his whole project, his whole, cloning thing will come into a head. So I think as we kind of move forward, we're going to still get our one-off type of journey of the week type of setup, which I'm really excited. Speaking of future, I cannot wait to see Robert Rodriguez episode and see if we get a lava girl or shark boy cameo. Mix. But no, I think the future is we're going to see, as he continues to go towards his temple, that again, Gideon's out there and he's still tracking Mando, and that's something to keep an eye out for. And Boba Fett's still out there somewhere. We got to remember that. And that Beskar armor, man, I want me some Beskar. This is stronger than vibranium, isn't it? I mean,
it's basically it's basically the vibranium of Star Wars. But are we going to see Boba again? Who knows?
I wonder about that. I hope so.
Quick question: do you guys think that Ahsoka killed Morgan to get the answer? Is Morgan still a threat? Is she still alive, or do you think that Ahsoka killed her after she got the information from her?
That's interesting. I didn't think about that. I think knowing Ahsoka, she probably left her to the mercy of the village that she sort of kind of had under her rule. And so she I'm going to assume that she probably died because I don't have much faith in that village to be kind to her. But but that's sort of how I took it. I don't know what you guys were thinking.
Yeah, I don't know. As you say, it makes sense for her to leave it as is. But after Clone Wars, after Rebels, she's no longer above killing people. But I don't think she will just outright execute her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Or she can take her. I mean, she can take her prisoner. Where is your master? Taking this person with. Maybe Ahsoka takes her to finding Thrawn. That could be a character. Because Morgan, I mean, her story was somewhat tragic, as finding out that her parents were killed during the Clone Wars. So I think that is a character that can continue maybe some backstory if again Ahsoka didn't kill her. But I don't think she did.
That's the interesting thing is I love when we get these little tidbits about these characters, and with Morgan, it's we understand why she gravitated towards the Empire because she lost her family to that war, and this is what the show does so well is it sort of recontextualizes different things that we thought we knew about the Empire or the people involved in that, and it shows them as just real people to the point where what is considered the Galactic Civil War is truly a civil war because they're brothers and sisters who are kind of motivated by different things that happen to them. Obviously you have your really evil people with the Vader, the Sith, and then Gideon, people like that. But people like Morgan, I think there's a little bit more to them, and I think she represents a good chunk of people who fell into the Empire just by circumstance.
And that's what Filoni did with the Clone Wars as well. Yeah. He really made that about more than just clones and droids,
Yeah. No, 100%.
I do wonder about the next, because you said as for future episodes, because we only have 3 episodes left in the season,
right?
And I feel I don't know. I mean, by this point in the first season, we didn't know either what could happen or how it was going to come together. But I don't think anything major is going to be done in this season. I feel all of these backdoor pilots, as we said, if they don't become their own shows, they're definitely not gonna come back this season. I feel like if Ahsoka comes back, maybe she shows up in the season finale or something. Or like Bo-Katan, maybe like the Mandalore plot is gonna be for next season, if that. And at most, we're gonna see something like you said, like the tracking beacon coming to play towards the end, and maybe just like I mean, like the first season was just like an ambush type of thing. It's like smaller scale, but still like an intense like showdown, and will they make it out or not? And I feel like that's what is probably gonna happen. Like wherever that, either at the Jedi Temple or some other place, Moff Gideon's gonna track them down, and maybe someone cool is gonna show up and help him. Hopefully, Boba Fett, because he has to do something. He's still just staring into the horizon.
Yeah, he is still out there. Yeah, I guess that'll be the last thing that we sort of touch on here is, do we think the next episode is going to be a lore expanding temple episode where they go there, or do you think on the way to their temple, Moff Gideon is going to intervene and it's going to be more of an action packed sort of episode?
Based on the formula, if we want to call it that, of the Mandalorian, I think that we're going to not get straight to the temple. They're going to have some kind of offshoot type of journey on their way to the temple. The Razor Crest, we know, has its breakdowns at times. So I think it's safe to say that we're going to get some type of one-off. And I can see that's where Robert Rodriguez might come into the mix. And you have maybe a John Favreau, a Rick Famuyiwa, which I believe is coming back to direct the season. I can see those two kind of in and off the season. But I think it's safe to say Robert Rodriguez might make his appearance as a director next episode. And I wouldn't be surprised, man, come next week or the week after that. I think Esposito had mentioned that he shares a couple scenes with the child, so I think it's safe to say that he's going to probably take the child if that's a season-ending type of cliffhanger or a particular episode or the next chapter, and we see Mando recruit their, get Cara Dune back, get a Bo-Katan, get all these characters to get the child back. So I think that could be a potential season finale leading up to that.
Yeah, for sure.
At least for me, my only hope is that if they don't go to the temple next week, is because it's an ambush type or some other like thing that advances at least one of the plot points that we have been like threading so far. I don't want him to go to like help another fish lady get
no more spiders.
No more like side quests, no more fetch quests. Like please, if even like last week's episode was a bit of a really like off track mission, but it's still like he did all of the like midi-chlorians and all of that. I don't think they're gonna do another lore drop so soon.
Yeah,
I think it's gonna be like an ambush type or like an action pack or something like. If it's a distraction, it's gonna be like a fun type of distraction instead of just more lore, because that's what we did right here. I don't know if they can do that 3 times in a row.
Yeah, it would be a little bit of a stretch to do something like that. But again, I wouldn't hate to see it if they.
I wouldn't hate it.
Yeah.
Here you go, Griffin. You're gonna get your favorite character back. Patty Motto. She's gonna be making an appearance back. Your favorite character. She's gonna come back, cracking jokes.
Oh God!
The child has a name now. Patty's coming back. She's coming back.
I don't know what show she thinks she's in, but it is not The Mandalorian. I can tell you that much. So the less of her, the better. That's all I will say. But guys, that is going to do it for this review and recap of The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 5, called The Jedi, Chapter 13, whatever you want to call it. Be sure, as always, to let us know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. Let's have a great conversation going on in here. And if you haven't done so already, be sure to like this video, share it with your Star Wars Mandalorian-loving friends, and subscribe to the FilmSpeak channel so you don't miss out on more Mandalorian discussions like this every single Friday, along with a lot of other great film and television related content. We like to say the conversation continues after the credits, and of course, we'd love to have you be a part of that conversation. Thank you to my 2 guests for joining me today, Rafael, Elliott. Rafael, where can everyone find you?
You can find, I always share my writing on my Twitter at Rafael Montemayor, Mottamayor. And I said I wrote an explainer piece about Thrawn and what his deal is and how he can play into future episodes over at digitalspy.com.
Yeah, it's a great episode. Definitely, if you want a deeper dive into this episode of The Mandalorian and future implications, go check it out for sure. Elliott, thank you for joining me as always. Where can everyone find you?
Hey, man, these are always the best times of the week for me, man. And I think it's safe to say, guys, it feels so good to talk about Star Wars and not have, like, I think The Mandalorian is kind of bringing everyone back together, which we were kind of separated with, the film. So that's always great, man. So it is a pleasure speaking Star Wars with you guys, and hope you guys have a great weekend. But yeah, you guys can find me here on YouTube at Movie Files, talking about shows like this, movies, and other things like that. So check me out there, as well as on Instagram at Movie Files and on Twitter at Movie Files Live.
There you go, guys. And also, you can like FilmSpeak on Facebook or follow us on Twitter. Just search FilmSpeak. And if you like me specifically and you like what I have to say, you can give me a follow on Twitter at Griff Schiller. All right, that's going to do it for this review of The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 5. And we will catch you back here next week. Take care.